What if I told you that one of history's most powerful empires, an empire that would last over 600 years and terrify the whole of Europe, started with a bloke leading a small band of horsemen from a cluster of tents? No grand palaces, no vast armies, just a handful of warriors on the frontier between two dying civilizations. Nobody saw them coming. Nobody thought they'd amount to anything. And yet, in just over a century, they'd go from absolute nobodies to the conquerors of Constantinople itself, ending 1,000 years of history in the process. This is the story of the Ottoman Empire, and it's one of the most remarkable tales of ambition, timing, and sheer bloody-mindedness you'll ever hear. Picture Anatolia at the dawn of the 14th century. It's an absolute mess. The great Seljuk Sultanate, which once ruled the entire region with an iron fist, has completely fallen apart under relentless Mongol pressure. What's left? Dozens upon dozens of tiny Turkish principalities, each one led by a local warlord or chieftain, all fighting each other for scraps of land, glory, and survival. It's chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. And on the other side of this fractured landscape, you've got the Byzantine Empire. Remember them? The last remnant of ancient Rome, once the most powerful empire in the world. Well, by this point, they're hanging on by their fingernails, desperately clinging to their final bits of territory in Anatolia, watching their empire crumble piece by piece. It's in this chaotic, violent borderland between the Islamic world and Christian Byzantium that our story really begins. There's a small frontier principality barely worth mentioning, led by a man named Osman. He's the son of Ertugrul, a warrior chief of pretty humble origins. Osman commands a band of nomadic horsemen and ghazis, that's fighters of the faith, warriors who saw themselves as defenders and expanders of Islam. His territory? It's not even really a proper state. It's more like a collection of tents and wooden structures near Byzantine lands. Nothing impressive. Nothing that would make anyone stop and take notice. But here's the thing about Osman. He's ambitious. He's clever. And he understands something fundamental about power. You build it one victory at a time. He starts launching raids into nearby Byzantine fortresses. Places like Karakahizar, Balchik, and Eskişehir. Small targets at first, but each successful raid brings something crucial: new warriors. Tribes and fighters start flocking to his banner because he's winning, and everyone wants to be on the winning side. With every campaign, his forces swell. With every victory, his reputation grows. What started as a tiny principality begins to look like an actual state. Osman's leadership is marked by a perfect blend of courage and cunning. He's not just a warrior charging into battle blindly. He's thinking strategically about alliances, about which territories to take, about how to build something that lasts. By the time Osman dies, his people control most of northwestern Anatolia. Not bad for a bloke who started with virtually nothing, is it? But here's the crucial bit. Osman laid the foundation, but it was his son who'd build the empire on top of it. Enter Orhan Gazi. When he takes power, he doesn't just continue his father's raids. He transforms them into something more sophisticated. There's strategy now. There's purpose. And in 1326, the Ottomans capture Bursa, and this changes everything. Bursa isn't just another fortress or small town. It's their first proper city, a wealthy trading hub, famous for its silk trade, perfectly positioned as a center of power. Orhan makes it his capital, and suddenly the Ottomans aren't just a raiding band anymore, they're a state. A real, functioning state with officials, their own coins, actual laws. It's the beginning of something genuinely extraordinary. A few years later, in 1329, comes the Battle of Peloponnesus. Orhan's forces meet the Byzantines in open battle, and he absolutely crushes them. This isn't a raid or a skirmish. This is a decisive military victory that ends Byzantine hopes of ever reclaiming Asia Minor. The message is clear. The Ottomans are here to stay. Soon after, the great Byzantine cities of Nicaea and Nicomedia fall to Ottoman forces. Think about that for a moment. These are ancient, prestigious cities, and they're falling to what was, just decades earlier, a collection of nomadic warriors. The Byzantines are now completely cut off from Anatolia. The Turkish frontier lords have become masters of the region. Now ... Here's where fate steps in with impeccable timing. In 1354, a massive earthquake strikes the Gallipoli Peninsula. Byzantine fortifications are destroyed. Towns lie in ruins, the land is in absolute chaos. And the Ottomans, ever opportunistic, move with lightning speed. They cross the Dardanelles and occupy the shattered settlements before the Byzantines can even respond. This is their first foothold in Europe, and it's impossible to overstate how significant this moment is. From this point forward, the Ottoman advance shifts from Asia into the Balkans. They're not just an Anatolian power anymore. They're a European power too. They build fortresses. They settle Turkish families in the conquered territories. They use their new position to launch campaigns across Thrace and Macedonia. By 1362, Orhan's son, Murad I, has captured Adrianople, modern-day Edirne, and makes it the new Ottoman capital. Think about the symbolism there. The capital is now in Europe, not Asia. This isn't just expansion. This is a fundamental shift in what the Ottoman state is becoming. Murad faces a divided Europe, and he exploits that division brilliantly. The Balkan kingdoms are individually powerful, sure, but they're too busy feuding with each other to present a united front. They can't see the storm that's approaching until it's too late. In 1371, at the Battle of Maritsa, Murad's army launches a devastating night attack on a massive Serbian force. The Serbs are caught completely unprepared. Their camp is overrun. Soldiers are slaughtered or driven into the river to drown. The river literally runs red with blood. It's a catastrophic defeat for the Christians and opens the entire Balkans to Ottoman expansion. But the Serbs, to their credit, don't give up. In 1389, they gather a coalition of Serbian and Bosnian forces for one last desperate stand at Kosovo Field. The battle is brutal. Knights clash with janissaries, those elite Ottoman slave soldiers, in smoke and chaos across the plain. And here's where it gets dramatic. Murad I himself is killed during the fighting. But even the death of their sultan doesn't stop the Ottomans. They stand firm, they keep fighting, and by the end of the day they're victorious. The Serbs are crushed. Ottoman dominance in the Balkans is secured for generations. Murad's son, Bayezid I, takes the throne right there on the battlefield. He's known as Yildirim the Thunderbolt, and it's an apt nickname. The man is aggressive, relentless, and moves with terrifying speed. He expands rapidly into Bulgaria, Serbia, and Greece, crushing any resistance. Under his rule, the Ottoman army becomes increasingly professional, with a growing core of janissaries trained from childhood to be elite warriors. The Ottomans are no longer just good. They're becoming the best military force in the region. In 1396, a massive crusader army gathers at Nicopolis to stop him. We're talking about knights from France, Hungary, Wallachia, the cream of European chivalry, thousands of heavily armored warriors convinced of their superiority. They charge recklessly into the Ottoman lines, confident that their superior armor and training will win the day. They're annihilated. Absolutely destroyed. Nicopolis ends the last major crusade of the Middle Ages and proves beyond any doubt that the Ottomans are now a power that can rival any empire in Europe. After this crushing victory, Bayezid turns his attention back to the ultimate prize, Constantinople. He surrounds the city with siege lines and blockades, slowly strangling the Byzantine capital. The emperor, isolated and desperate, calls out to the Christian world for help. But salvation doesn't come from the West. Instead, it comes from the East, and it's not salvation at all. It's a different kind of disaster. Timur the Lame, also known as Tamerlane, a Turco-Mongol conqueror claiming descent from Genghis Khan's legacy, invades Anatolia in 1402 with an absolutely enormous army. Bayezid marches to meet him near Ankara, leading one of the largest armies the Ottomans have ever assembled. It should be a fair fight. But during the battle, something catastrophic happens. Many of Bayezid's Turkish allies defect to Timur. They're unwilling to fight against a fellow Turk, especially one as legendary as Tamerlane. The Ottoman army collapses in confusion. Bayezid is captured and would die in captivity. The empire falls into complete chaos. What follows is called the Ottoman Interregnum, and it's a nightmare. A brutal civil war erupts among Bayezid's sons. Brothers fight brothers for the throne. Cities burn. Territories are lost. The empire that seemed unstoppable just years earlier now looks like it might disintegrate completely. For the first time, it seems entirely possible that the Ottomans might vanish as quickly as they'd risen. Many expected them to become just another footnote in history, another failed state consumed by internal conflict. But they survive. Against all odds, by 1413, one of Bayezid's sons, Mehmed I, emerges victorious from the chaos. He methodically rebuilds the administration, re-establishes order, and revives the trade routes that had made the empire wealthy. His successor, Murad II, continues this work of reconstruction, rebuilding the army and reclaiming lost territories. The Ottoman state is reborn and has been hardened by its near-death experience. It's more disciplined, more organized, more dangerous than ever. When a massive Crusader army invades in 1444, confident they can destroy this resurgent empire, Murad crushes them at Varna in a stunning, decisive victory. 4 years later, he defeats another Christian coalition at the Second Battle of Kosovo, definitively reaffirming Ottoman supremacy in southeastern Europe. The empire that nearly died is now stronger than it's ever been. The phoenix has risen from the ashes, and it's hungry. And then, in 1451, Murad's young son takes the throne. His name is Mehmed II, and he's got his eyes on the ultimate prize, the dream that his ancestors had chased for decades. The city that had stood unconquered for over 1,000 years, Constantinople. Mehmed is 21 years old when he begins his siege in 1453. 21! But don't let his age fool you. The lad is brilliant, obsessive, and utterly determined. His army is massive, somewhere between 50 and 80,000 soldiers. And he's brought something new to the battlefield. Enormous cannons forged by Hungarian engineers. These aren't your typical medieval siege weapons. These are monsters that can shake the ancient walls of Constantinople to their foundations. The Byzantines, massively outnumbered and exhausted, defend their capital with desperate courage. Emperor Constantine XI leads his men personally, fighting alongside them. But deep down, everyone knows how this ends. For 53 days, the Ottomans hammer away at the walls by land and sea. And here's a brilliant bit of military ingenuity when the Byzantines use a massive chain to block the Golden Horn and prevent Ottoman ships from entering. Mehmed has his ships hauled overland on greased logs and wooden tracks. He literally carries his navy across land to bypass the defenses. It's the kind of audacious move that defines his entire approach to warfare. The final assault comes on the 29th of May, 1453. After hours of brutal, grinding combat, the walls are breached. Ottoman soldiers pour through the gaps. Emperor Constantine, refusing to surrender or flee, falls fighting with his men. He chooses death over witnessing his empire's final humiliation. The city that had stood as a beacon of Christian civilization for a millennium is finally conquered. Constantinople becomes Istanbul, the new beating heart of the Ottoman Empire, and a symbol that a new world order has begun. The medieval age is ending, the early modern period is beginning. And it's all happening because of this remarkable empire. Think about this journey for a moment. From Osman's small frontier principality, barely more than a collection of tents and wooden houses, to the conquest of Constantinople. From a band of nomadic horsemen to an empire spanning 2 continents. In just over a century and a half, the Ottomans transformed themselves from border raiders into rulers of an empire that would shape world history for the next 600 years. They did it through a combination of military brilliance, political cunning, impeccable timing, religious zeal, and sheer determination. The rise of the Ottomans is complete. But here's the thing, their story is only just beginning. This empire would go on to threaten Vienna, control the Mediterranean, and become one of history's longest-lasting and most influential empires. But it all started with one man, one small band of warriors, and one unshakable belief that they were destined for something greater. So there you have it. From absolutely nothing to conquering the unconquerable. If this journey through history got your blood pumping, if it made you appreciate just how quickly the world can change when ambition meets opportunity, then do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about how empires rise and fall, how history pivots on unexpected moments. Drop a comment below. What other empire's origin story should I cover? The Mongols? The Mughals? Let me know. Until next time, remember, every great empire started somewhere small, and nobody saw them coming until it was far too late.